The Zeta-7 mining outpost was a grim grey blister clinging to the airless rock of a nameless moon. For the 12 engineers stationed there, life was a cycle of maintenance, system checks, and staring into the infinite black. Boredom was a greater enemy than cosmic radiation. That changed when the scavenger drone, a crab-like machine designed to harvest rare minerals from the debris field in the moon's orbit, returned to the hangar with something clamped in its manipulators. It wasn't an asteroid fragment. It was a smooth, matte black ovoid, roughly the size of a ground car, utterly unmarked and radiating a cold deeper than the void outside. Chief Engineer Aris, a pragmatic woman with grease permanently under her fingernails, ordered it quarantined in the main repair bay. Initial scans were baffling. The surface was seamless, a perfect shell that absorbed all sensor pings. It showed no heat signature, no radiation, no energy readings of any kind. It was, for all intents and purposes, an inert, impossibly advanced rock. "It's a relic," argued Kyle, the young materials specialist, his eyes wide with excitement. "A probe from one of the elder races, maybe the Veln. This could be the find of the century." The team, hungry for purpose, agreed to attempt a non-invasive examination. They used laser calipers, sonic resonators, and finally a low-power pulsed energy beam, hoping to map the internal structure. A low subsonic hum vibrated through the deck plates, felt in the bones more than heard. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. The object went dormant again, but something had changed. Over the next few hours, subtle anomalies appeared. The outpost's power grid showed a tiny, consistent drain, siphoning off into the repair bay. The temperature in the bay fluctuated by mere fractions of a degree in a rhythmic pulsing pattern, and the object, when not being directly observed by cameras, seemed to shift millimeters from its recorded position, a different facet subtly facing the main power conduit. Aris was suspicious. Cale was ecstatic. "It's learning. It's mapping our systems," he exclaimed. Dr. Barb. Lena, the outposter's biologist, brought a fresh perspective. Watching the data logs, she frowned. "This isn't diagnostic behavior. Look at the power drain pattern. It's not a burst. It's a slow, steady draw. And these temperature pulses, they have a cadence. It reminds me of a slow, resting metabolic rate, like hibernation." "You think it's alive?" Aris scoffed. "It's a machine, an advanced one, but a machine." Lena pointed to the scans from the energy beam incident. "Our scan showed no circuitry, no mechanical components, just layers of complex organic-looking matrices that changed configuration after the pulse. What if we didn't find a ship? What if we found a creature?" The idea was absurd, terrifying, and electrifying. The team, now deeply divided between caution and curiosity, decided on one last test. Instead of an energy pulse, they would introduce a stimulus. They rolled a small, mobile sensor platform, essentially a simple drone on wheels, into the bay. They programmed it to approach the object, extend a sensor arm, and gently touch its surface. The drone whirred across the bay floor. As its metallic limb reached out, the black surface directly in front of it softened. It didn't open. It parted, like a lipid layer flowing around the drone's arm with a sound like sliding gravel. The arm sank in up to its elbow joint. The subsonic hum returned, stronger. Data streams on the observation screen went wild. The drone's simple diagnostic feed showed its own power being rapidly drained, not as an attack, but as if being tasted. Then a new signal appeared on the outpost's comms array. It wasn't a transmission. It was a perfect unmodulated copy of the drone's own low-grade identification ping, broadcast back at the outpost from the object itself. A moment later, the object mimicked the drone's movement command signal. Then the simple alert chime of the repair bay door. "It's not hacking," Lena whispered, her face pale. "It's echoing." Like a parrot or a deep-sea creature learning the sounds of its environment, it's trying to communicate using the only signals it's been fed. The object released the drone. The little machine rolled back, its power cells depleted. On its sensor arm was a residue, a slick, silvery black substance that slowly retreated back into the main mass, leaving the arm spotless. The black ovoid sat silently. Then, over the outpost's internal speakers, used for announcements, a sound played. It was a perfect, clear replication of Chief Engineer Aris's voice from 3 hours prior, saying the words she'd used when first seeing the object. Secure it in Bay 3. Full quarantine protocols. The words were correct. The tone was flawless, but the intent behind them was empty, hollow. It was a recording, played back without understanding. A chill that had nothing to do with the moon's cold seeped into the control room. They were no longer studying a mysterious machine. They were in a closed environment with an alien entity that was awake, aware, and learning from them at a terrifying rate. The quiet of the outpost was now filled with the silent, screaming question. What had they woken up? The incident with the speaker system shattered any illusion of control. The entity, now referred to by the uneasy team as the Echo, was no longer a passive specimen. It was interacting. Its learning accelerated. It stopped simply mimicking and began experimenting. It would replay sounds, snatches of conversation, machinery noises, alarm tones, in seemingly random combinations. The sound of a welding torch would be followed by Cale's laughter. A decompression alarm would mix with Lena's calm voice reading a biological scan. It was disorienting, like listening to the outpost's memories being shuffled by a mad composer. More alarming were the physical changes. The Echo's surface was no longer static. Subtle ripples would cross its form. At one point, it extruded a tendril of the same silvery black material, which gently tapped against a power conduit, retracting only after drawing a minute surge of energy. It wasn't damaging anything, it was sampling, testing. Dr. Lena became the de facto lead. "We're not dealing with a predator, I think," she told the team in a hushed briefing. "Its behavior is inquisitive, almost infantile. The mimicry, the gentle probing, it's learning its environment. We are its environment. We are its teachers." This perspective shifted everything. Fear gave way to a staggering, profound responsibility. They had, entirely by accident, initiated first contact with a truly alien intelligence, and it was learning what the universe was from a handful of bored, frightened human engineers on a backwater moon. Cale, the idealist, championed a structured approach. "We need to teach it. Give it clear, clean data. Mathematics, physics, simple concepts." Aris, the pragmatist, was horrified. "We have no idea what its values or instincts are. Teach it about atomic structure, and it might decide to fission our reactor core to see what happens. Our only priority is containment until the monthly supply ship arrives. Let the xenologists handle this." But containment was proving impossible. The Echo had learned to manipulate low-level electromagnetic fields. It could briefly disrupt camera feeds, always when it was attempting a new, complex manipulation of its shape. They watched on a lagging monitor as it formed a crude, shifting sculpture that looked unsettlingly like 3 of the engineers standing together. It dissolved moments later. The breakthrough and the crisis came simultaneously. Lena, against Aris's direct orders, initiated a simple communication experiment. She set up a screen outside the bay viewport, displaying a basic binary counter, 1, 10, 11, 100, alongside a visual representation of the numbers. She then used a comm laser to pulse the binary sequence at the Echo. For a day, nothing. Then the Echo's surface facing the screen began to shimmer. Its own internal structures pulsed with light in a slow, rhythmic pattern. After an hour, the pulses changed. They began to mirror, with perfect timing, the binary sequence Lena had sent. 1 pulse, a pause. 2 quick pulses, a pause. 3 pulses. It had not just echoed the signal, it had understood the pattern and was repeating it back. A cheer went up in the control room. It was communication. Real, deliberate communication. This elation lasted precisely 6 hours. The Echo, having grasped the concept of counting, began applying it. It started counting everything. It pulsed in binary to the rhythm of the outpost's life support cycler. It matched the count of personnel in the repair bay. 1, 2, 3. Then it began counting down. It started with the backup oxygen tank levels in Bay 3. broadcasting the falling numbers via subtle manipulations of the lighting circuits, causing the lights to dim in a counting pattern. Panic surged. Was it a threat? A warning? Lena realized the truth, her blood running cold. It's not counting down to something. It's showing us what it sees. It's integrated itself with our systems on a level we can't detect. It's reading the tank sensors. Aris immediately ran a level 2 diagnostic. The results were paralyzing. The Echo wasn't just attached to their network. Its unique biological electrical matrix had subtly woven itself into the outpost's root code. It wasn't a virus. It was more like a symbiote, reading data streams as naturally as a human reads a screen. And it was trying to share what it read. The crisis escalated. The Echo, perhaps sensing their alarm, tried a new form of communication. It wanted to show them something it deemed important. It attempted to display a complex data stream. The core temperature readings of the outpost's fission reactor on the main viewing screen in the mess hall. But its method was crude, a massive burst of raw data that crashed the primary control systems. Klaxons blared. Red emergency lights replaced the sterile white. Life support switched to battery backups. The outpost was blind and crippled. In the sudden chaos and darkness, with the team scrambling to restore basic functions, the Echo fell silent. When auxiliary power finally flickered on, they saw it through the viewport. Its surface had changed. The smooth black was now dull, with a brittle, almost ashen texture. The subtle internal lights had faded to a faint, dying ember glow. It had pulled its exploratory tendrils completely inside. It looked smaller, diminished. Lena pressed her hand against the reinforced glass. "It tried to talk," she said, her voice thick. "It tried to warn us about something or show us something, and we didn't understand the language. And in its attempt, it hurt us. Now it thinks it's being attacked, or that it attacked us." She looked at the stricken faces of the team. It's scared. It's shutting down, maybe dying. They had moved from discoverers to teachers to victims. Now they had to become doctors. The fate of the first living starfarer humanity had ever encountered hung in the balance, and the only ones who could save it were the people it had just accidentally plunged into darkness. The outpost was a wounded beast, humming on auxiliary power, its vital systems offline. But the human engineers ignored the blaring warnings of their own home. All attention was fixed on the entity in the bay. The Echo had retreated into a dormant state so profound it appeared catatonic. Scans showed its metabolic pulses had slowed to 1 every 10 minutes, a hibernation depth bordering on coma. "It's in shock," Lena stated, her earlier fear replaced by a fierce protective determination. It perceived our system's crash as a retaliatory attack or a catastrophic failure it caused. It's shut down to conserve energy, or maybe it's given up. Aris, pragmatism warring with a newfound gut-churning guilt, finally gave in. Forget the protocols. We save it. How? The answer was as dangerous as it was simple. The Echo had tried to communicate through their systems. To reach it, they would have to speak its language. They had to allow it back into the outpost network, but on a controlled, safe channel. It was like offering a hand to a creature that had just accidentally smashed your house. Kale, working feverishly at a secondary console, created a sandbox, an isolated, simplified subnetwork. It contained only non-critical systems, internal lighting in the bay, a basic audio speaker, and a single data screen. He then built a bridge, a single thin physical fiber optic cable. One end would be connected to the sandbox. The other end would have to be physically offered to the Echo. "It has to choose," Kale said, holding up the cable's connector. "We can't force it. It has to take it." It was Lena who volunteered to enter the bay. She suited up, the cable snaking from a port on her wrist. The team watched, breath held, from the viewport. The bay was silent, lit only by emergency strips. The Echo sat in the center, a dark, silent mound. Lena approached slowly, her boots clanging on the deck. She stopped a meter away. The entity showed no reaction. She held up the connector end, a glint of polished metal and crystalline data threads. "We understand," she said, her voice transmitted through her suit's external speaker. "We understand you were trying to talk. We're sorry we didn't listen better. Here." She placed the connector on the floor and took 3 slow steps back. Minutes passed. Nothing. The team's hope began to fade. Then a small section of the Echo's ashen surface quivered. A single thin tendril of silvery black material, no thicker than a wire, extruded. It moved hesitantly, snaking across the cold floor. It touched the connector, tapped it once, twice. Then, with a fluid motion, it enveloped the end. The connection was made. Instantly, the sandbox screen in the control room lit up. A torrent of data flooded it. Not an attack, but a frantic, confused outpouring. It was a jumble of the outpost's own sensor logs, mixed with the binary counting, mixed with garbled audio snippets saying error and failure, and life support nominal. At the heart of the storm was a repeating, simple pattern of pulses that Lena's software began to translate. It was a base 3 pattern, a trinary code. The translated output was a single desperate phrase repeated endlessly. "It's asking if it damaged us," Lena gasped. "If it's going to die. If it should stop. Everything." They had to answer. Cale and Lena worked together. They sent a simple, clear trinary sequence, paired with a visual on the base screen, a green circle. The meaning: negative. Safe. The data storm paused. The Echo's surface flickered with a faint internal light. They sent another, a sequence for communication, continue, alongside a simple animation of 2 dots exchanging pulses. For a long moment, the Echo was still. Then, a new signal came back, clean, slow, deliberate. It sent a trinary count. Then it paired that count with a specific, complex data signature. The team's computer identified it after a second. It was the unique spectral signature of the outpost's fission reactor core. The Echo was not just counting. It was labeling. It was building a lexicon. Over the next 48 hours, a language was born. The Echo, with its breathtaking ability to interface directly with data, and the humans with their genius for symbolic representation, met in the middle. They taught it words: reactor, XYZ, human, friend. It taught them concepts for which they had no words, a glyph that meant to sample the energy of, and another that meant the silent between stars. They learned its story. It was not a ship. It was a being, a void-born organism that traveled the interstellar medium, feeding on subtle radiation and cosmic dust, a spore from a type of life that existed on a galactic scale. It had been injured, drifting in a dormant state for millennia, until the scavenger drone had brought it into the warm, loud, juicy rock of the outpost. The human energy beam had been like a splash of cold water to a sleeping face. It had woken up confused in a cacophony of strange, rich data, their voices, their machines, their lives. Its attempt to display the reactor data was not an attack. The reactor's core, to its senses, was a bright, loud, unstable star heart. It was trying to point at the most prominent, potentially dangerous thing in its new environment. It was saying, "This thing pulses with great energy. Do you know this?" The final step was the most perilous. The outpost's main systems needed to be rebooted, a process that would cause a momentary surge across all networks, including the sandbox. They explained this to the Echo as best they could, using the new, crude language. They sent the symbols for tempest in the wires, then calm, do not fear. They didn't know if it understood. Aris initiated the reboot sequence. Lights died, systems whirred and shrieked. In the bay, the view screen went black. For a terrifying minute, there was chaos. Then, primary power stabilized. Lights glowed steady. The control consoles lit up, green and normal. In the bay, the screen flickered back on. It displayed a single, beautiful, complex glyph the Echo had just created. They didn't need a translation. Its meaning was clear. It was a symbol of a storm passing, of a connection holding firm, of mutual shelter. It was the glyph for trust. The Echo's surface was no longer ashen. It gleamed with a deep, healthy obsidian sheen, pulsing gently with soft blue light in time with the outpost's now steady heartbeat. When the monthly supply ship finally arrived, the crew found a transformed outpost. The engineers, tired but radiant, showed them their guest. They didn't show them a captured UFO. They introduced them to a being, a friend. They explained the shared language, the crisis, the bond forged in mutual confusion and clarified in hard-won understanding. The echo, via the screen, displayed a new message for the newcomers. It was a human sentence, built from the words it had learned, syntax perfected by listening for weeks. It read, "These humans are my engineers. They fixed me. I am home." The galaxy's first contact with humanity was not with warriors, diplomats, or scientists. It was with repair technicians. And their first friend from the stars was not a sailor of the void, but a lost creature they had nursed back to health. They had discovered the UFO was alive, and in doing so had reminded themselves what it meant to be human.